My guest this evening, all the way from the Netherlands, it turns out, is Robert. Robert, you're going to have to pronounce your name for me so I can get it right, I'm afraid.
Dingemanse.
Dingemanse, okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Well, I looked at it. Of course, I speak ein kleines bisschen Deutsch, so so I figured it must have been something close to that. So anyway, Robert is the CEO of PAL-V in Europe, and Robert has developed a flying car. Now, everybody has been trying to do this since the Wright brothers, but with varying degrees of success. Of course, we have here in the United States, we have Terrafugia, that's, come up with the idea also for a flying car. But Robert, you've kind of got an interesting angle on this thing, because yours, it looks like it kind of melds a couple of different technologies, and that's what we want to talk about today. Now, the first thing I need to let my viewers know is that this is not an electric vehicle.
No.
This is not it's not a hybrid or anything of that nature. It doesn't fly on hydrogen. This is a good old gasoline, fossil fuel powered vehicle, primarily because that's the energy density that one needs to be able to accomplish what it is you're wanting to do. So with that proviso in mind, and the aspiration that at some point along the line we'll get battery chemistry like zinc air or something like that that will give us comparable energy density and lightness, volumetric space and all that. In the interim, we've got a really interesting vehicle here we want to talk about. So first of all, Robert, tell me a little bit about yourself. How in the world did you, I understand you worked at Philips for a while, how did you get involved with a flying car?
Well, within Philips and later after, when I worked for Philips, I was always busy working in the domain where new technologies and new regulations brought new opportunities and changed the games of certain value chains. So and that's what I do with a company called Redesign Partners. So we redesign actually value chains and businesses.
Okay.
And in doing that, we are pretty well known in the Netherlands, and we get a lot of people with new technologies coming along. And this technician who had thought of this concept, what we are building at the moment, came along. And well, in the beginning, we didn't believe it, because people are trying it already for 100 years. So why would this concept then be the winner?
Right.
But then we discovered that he actually cracked the nut, which was always the blockage to build a driving airplane, because that's actually the challenge.
Yeah.
If you have an airplane, then by definition your center of gravity is high on its wheels. It should be a three-wheel, and then a three-wheel with a high center of gravity is a terrible thing on the road.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So he actually worked together with a company in the Netherlands who had developed a three-wheel vehicle and built it commercially, which was stable. And they were the first in the world doing that. They actually beat Yamaha, Mercedes, BMW in doing so. They patented it all, and actually that was the enabling technology to build a real flying car. The one drives really with 110, 128 miles an hour on the highways. And you can fly it with 110, 120 miles cruising speed through the air. And you have both options. And that's actually different from the Terrafugia you mentioned.
Right.
That's more what they call a roadable plane.
A roadable plane, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's a plane which flies like a plane and you can take home, but it's not really something you would use on the highways.
Right. You would want to basically drive it, a short distance from the airfield out to, maybe you've got a home, nearby in a gated community that's got an airport or something like that. So, yeah, what I found was interesting, because I looked at this. I've seen this car portion before, right? I mean, this is a three-wheeled leaning vehicle, basically, and those have been around for a few years now. So so the individual then basically took that and said, why don't we meld that then with a gyrocopter? A folding. What I found intriguing was in watching the video, and we'll have a link obviously to the video. What I found intriguing was that the blades, the gyrocopter blades, fold the propeller blades fold, and it really makes a very neat kind of a package here. So tell me a little bit about the sort of, when did this thing begin to happen, and what have been some of the challenges of moving from his concept to where you've got this actual flying prototype?
Yeah, actually, the whole idea of Sean Bakker, who was the inventor, so to say, behind this, started already around 2000, and it was a time when he had sold his third company. He had, for the first time in life, he had money and time.
Right.
Because he either didn't have money or time. And he was in the midst of his 40s, so you start to do different things.
Right.
And he started flying, and then found out actually what most people do when they are flying. They actually, what you want is something which you can start at home as a vehicle and fly, and then drive to your final destination. And private flying is always from airstrip to airstrip.
Right.
So his idea was, how can I make this better?
Yeah.
And then he ran into this same problem we were talking about, this high center of gravity. And in 2005, actually 5 years later, this company, Carver, you were referring to, building this three-wheel tilting vehicle,
right,
came on the market. So he instantaneously recognized that's really what is breaking the rules in building flying cars.
Yeah.
The Carver guys didn't realize it because they were busy making a vehicle.
Right, exactly. Right.
So he negotiated with them worldwide exclusivity on their technology to build it into a flying car. And then he started to look for investors. And in his search for investors, he found me with my partners.
Right.
So we started to invest in this idea, building up a company, find some co-investors out of our network, and we said we're going to build it in stages. So the first stage we want to reach is, simply said, we prove the technology, but we also prove that we can build a vehicle within the existing regulatory framework. So one of the beauties of this concept is it fits within the existing rules, both on the road and in the air. So it doesn't require any changes of laws or regulations or whatever. It's allowed in Europe, it's allowed in the US, it's allowed in most countries in the world.
Okay, so it would be, if you brought it here,
is business-wise as important as do the technologies work.
Yeah. So if you brought it here
as well as the technology.
Yeah, if you brought it here to the United States, then it would comply with Department of Transportation regulations, and that would be classified what, as an automobile or a motorcycle? No. Or?
Well, there's special rules which are more motorcycle-like for three wheels.
Okay, all right.
As long as you stay within certain limits, then you qualify for that. And
right. And
in the air, we qualify for what is called CS27 in Europe, which is FAR 27 in the US, and that's identical regulations for rotorcrafts to a certain weight class.
Oh, okay. All right, good. So it wouldn't have a problem with getting certified either in Europe or here. Who do you anticipate buying this? I noticed on the website you were looking at, there'd be possible, military applications. There would be, television, maybe, sky traffic reporters could use something like this. So who do you kind of see, and how big do you think that market might be?
It's always hard to say for something which is really brand new, because people cannot imagine how it will change their behavior. Yeah. But we are experiencing on a daily basis that it is already changing people's mind.
Yeah.
So you give people new possibilities and they start to behave differently. So on the prudent side, we always say there's no reason why we shouldn't be a successful aviation company.
So
we really bring a big benefit to an airplane. Because you can take it from the airport to where you want to be. You don't have to go back to the airport. If you can choose to drive, to fly. So we think the market will definitely be around 1,000, 2,000 a year.
Okay.
But it will also make people fly who wouldn't consider flying before. And that part of the market is hard to judge.
Yeah.
Many people now say, well, I'm not going to fly because I'm too weather dependent, the weather changes, I'm stuck at the airport. Well, for a flying car, that doesn't hold. If you fly going there, you can always drive back when it changes.
Right, right.
So it's in that sense a much more useful plane. And that's why more people will start using flying as an option when there's a flying car. So, yeah, and then the other part, of course, in the world, there are a lot of countries, name it Brazil, China, India, where infrastructure is terrible. So if you can fly, even not very fast, you're much faster than on surface ground.
Right.
So yeah, and so we have interest from virtually any country in the world.
Okay. What are the specifications here? I mean, what let's talk about. You mentioned ground speed on the road was somewhere around what, 180 kilometers per hour top?
Yeah.
Okay. Airspeed cruise was about 110, I think you said. Is that knots or
kilometers? Miles an hour.
Miles an hour.
Also about 170, 180 kilometers an hour.
Okay. Yeah. So, and this flies by visual flight rules, correct?
Of course, the first versions, yes. In discussions with the military, which is from various countries, there's interest from the military, including your country. And of course, they want the instrument flight rules.
Yeah, right. So this would then basically, how much, I mean, do you have to have a private pilot's license for this? Do you have to have a rotorcraft license to fly this? I mean, who actually, I mean, there's been a movement here to try to, there is even a class where there's a type of aircraft you can fly. You don't effectively even have to have a pilot's license to fly it. What do you anticipate? Who can fly this thing? Is this an everyman kind of thing, or is this something you still need to have, some flight training and that type of thing?
Well, if you look at, you were saying rightfully so, it's a gyrocopter and it's not a helicopter. And gyrocopters are the easiest way of flying, so it's very easy to learn for almost everybody. It's very different from a helicopter. A helicopter is very hard for people to learn, and you have to have continuous training to do it safely, and it takes a lot of attention. I always explain that a gyrocopter is stable for itself, and that's really the case. If you fly cruising speed and you leave the yoke alone, so you lose it continues to fly in the right direction, and you can do that for 5 minutes.
Okay.
It's a very stable thing. If the engine stops, then the rotor is acting as your parachute, so even if there's an engine problem or whatever, you still can control it. You can land it with almost zero speed. It's a very safe and easy thing. Everybody can learn it, but still you have to learn it.
Yeah.
And learning to fly a gyrocopter takes on average something like 20 to 30 hours training, practical training.
Okay.
And then you can, if you're a personal person and you stay in one country, a recreational pilot license does the job for a gyrocopter with a gyrocopter rating, or a private pilot license. So it's in terms of time and money the sort of same investment like getting your car license for the first time.
Okay, all right, good.